Jenna with the D.I.D system, and today I'm doing something a little different. I'm mashing some worlds together, and I am part of a writing collaborative called the Insubordinate Pen. So I wanted to do a video on friendship with someone with D.I.D by introducing you to my people. Go ahead, guys.
Ben and me first. I'm Lee, otherwise known as the cranky Hobbit battle maiden in the group, because these two irritate me a lot, and, and they laugh when they do. So,
Guilty.
yes, you are.
You have no sound.
There we go. I am Ben, and I'm the reason for most frustration in the group.
As we just saw.
Yep.
So we are like business partners as well as a writing group, and the irony is it's kind of a like it's three writers using one pen is like our tagline, so it works with multiplicity already. But we all have been friends for about 20 years now, and I know, right? Oh, it's painful.
God, we're old.
Save us all.
And yet we're grown up, so you know.
Well, I think that's probably why we're all still friends.
None of us grew up.
None of us. No, this is Thomas's influence.
Oh, yeah.
So we've been friends for about 20 years, and they've known me for long before I knew I was plural. And then as I was going through therapy and things were coming up, because we meet every week for our writing call and business meeting, which you guys are participating in, hey, they got to really be with me each step of the way. So they were kind enough to let me interview them kind of for one of the YouTube videos on what it's like being friends with a system. So guys, first question, and if you don't like a question or it doesn't make sense, you can always clarify, and we can always edit it out, because there was a question Jonathan was like, I don't even like that one. I was like, that's cool. And so the first thing I thought of was, how has being friends with multiple affected you, or has it? Like,
It's been interesting. I suppose the main way it's affected me is just when the times I have to stop and think, okay, which person am I talking to right now, and then adjust my conversation to fit that person. Like the time I called to talk to Jenna, and within a couple minutes realized I was talking to Lil, and she was little Lil. So, and I had to totally shift and imagine I was talking to one of my little nieces, because I was basically talking to like a 9-10-year-old, something like that. So, and like when one of her more cranky personalities has been in the frame, learning to just, okay, I'm just going to ignore what she just said that pissed me off because that wasn't her. Okay, we're good. So that's been the main thing, is just, yeah.
Well, that's perfect. Well, hang on, yeah, definitely. I want you to answer. I was going to say that's perfect on several levels, because people are like, well, how do I act? Well, you, one, treated them as individuals, like tailored your interaction. And then two, you weren't judging me for the like opinions of another alter. Like, we have to take responsibility for our actions, but to know like, well, this isn't Jenna's opinion or her thought on the matter.
Yeah.
And so that's been like, you guys have both been really amazing with all of this, just kind of intuitively. So go ahead, Ben.
That's good.
It's made me realize more poignantly, I guess, how bad I am at people's names in general. because I can tell when one of the others are fronting, but I can't always remember who's which. And so I'm just like, okay, yeah, that's not Jenna, but I'm not sure which one. But I know this one, and I know how to talk, but I don't know. I'm not using names. I'm just gonna keep the y'all or the they or the you, and just roll with it. But it's also really helped with like just opening my worldview, I guess, or my I guess worldview is the wrong word, but my understanding of the way the brain works flies. The understanding like the way just the way people are. So it's not just expanding from the like male female, but also just the gamut of the human experience, which I think is great. And I got to use that a little bit to a humorous point in one of our early works in what we're writing now. When I wrote a multiplicity of dwarves, and I feel like I did that. I did that well with respect, without turning it into a comedic trope, but actually respecting the balance between alters.
Yeah, I really think you did. And so for those who might want to look us up, if you go and look up the Insubordinate Pen, we write on both Royal Road and my brain just blanked.
World Anvil.
World Anvil, thank you. And our current web serial is called Meanwhile at Withersham's Inn. And right now you can go and get it for free, but we do plan eventually on like pulling it all together and like selling it. So y'all should go check it out for free. But yeah, because of the whole experience, what we're doing with the story is we're taking different fairy tales and totally twisting them, and it's been really fun. And so I'll do just a smidge of a spoiler. Is we did the Seven Dwarfs, and that was Ben's episode, and he said, "Well, how would you feel about it being one dwarf that was multiple?" And I was like, "I love it." So within a fiction setting, so not like a reality presentation, we twisted the fairy tale with that, and the what I felt I what I felt we did well was, so her reaction is she's freaked out at the end, but because she's like, I don't even, but the dwarves one aren't the villain. And then throughout the web serial, as they're referenced, there's been like some education in there, because she was like, I don't even know what you call that. And one character was like, well, I believe they call themselves a system. And and I rather enjoy their company. So and they're coming back too. Yeah. I can't wait for Bob and Co to come back.
And it was great having, especially from the writing standpoint, having 7 individual characters represented physically in their house, and then having them like switch back. But when you walked in, you saw the 7 distinct characters in the aesthetic of the house,
Mm-hmm.
and then realizing, oh, it is just one physical body with the 7 alters in like exchanging, was a lot of fun to play with that aspect of it.
And that was one of the things about when we did that one, because Ben wrote it and then I went in and put in the narrator's voice, just learning all the little things that I never would have thought of. There's one of the personalities alters, what's the proper term?
Both work. It depends. So it's really a preference. I use alters a lot. Some people use headmates, personalities, but it's really just what the person's comfortable with. Alters is common.
Okay. One of the alters, their space in the house, they had a mirror, and it never would have occurred to me that this would be problematic for the other alters, because when they looked in the mirror, they wouldn't look like what they pictured themselves as. So they had the mirror, but then they covered it with a scarf, so the other alters wouldn't be upset, offended, whatever, by the mirror not representing them. So it never occurred to me that would even be a thing. So it was a very educational writing those 2 episodes. So that was fun.
if the system was so fluid that it could shift through itself and actually have verbal conversation outside with itself, not just in headspace, but in the physical world, how that would look and how that would appear to somebody outside of the system. Imagine, because the way my brain worked was, imagine having to sit through one of Robin Williams' manic episodes, like his early stand-up routines, where he shifts through so many characters all at once. It would be a little bit overwhelming, and then once you got used to it, you were like, okay, cool. It would be a little bit of a learning curve just in how to listen.
Yes. And I really think that is a great representation of what it's like in the headspace. And so I thought you did a great job. And and one thing that I really appreciate about it is because of movies like Split and Sybil, there's been so much misunderstanding and so much villainizing of something that people are naturally curious about. So to kind of put it in a non-villainous mode, but in a way that people can interact and get some actual information, but it's clearly a fantasy setting. So they're not like thinking they know everything about anything because they've read this. I think for what we write, that's adding good media representation. I was really pleased with it.
Yeah.
So next question: how are if there's any differences now in the friendship, what might those be, or how are things still the same?
I think the main difference for me has actually been being a little more easygoing when you happen to say or do something that irritates me.
She did say she was the cranky battle maiden, y'all. Like,
yes,
just owning
and
it.
these
Yes.
two, it's amazing we've been friends as long as we have, because they know how to push my buttons and they do it for fun.
That one especially, yes, all the button pushings.
But
I'm usually inadvertent.
Yeah.
Usually.
Yes, I admit you usually had no clue you were doing it, and you're like, "What? Oh, oops."
Yeah. Oh, what? I was mashing the button continuously.
It's a good thing we don't live next door to each other. You would have got beat over the head with something hard repeatedly.
Yes. I'm getting echo.
But yeah, so just learn. It's been good for me just learning to loosen up a little bit, because realizing that there's so much going on up there that she might not always be in control of how I'm perceiving what obviously she's never in control of how I'm perceiving it, but yeah. It's yeah. I can be easily irritated, but usually when I know that there's mitigating circumstances, it helps me I don't even know how to say that.
Like you said, more flexible. Like
it helps me be more flexible and just recognize, okay, that I need to take a step back, because that probably wasn't what it was intended. And if it was Jennifer Adriana, and she was just being her little pissy self, and so
yeah, owning it. Yeah. Now she will push buttons on purpose.
Oh, she will. She will.
And that's been really great. So
I think that's actually what it's like, being able to almost separate your alters from you in my mind as different people was helpful for me in a way, because then I didn't it helped me with shifting back and forth with who I was talking to, but also the actions of one did not reflect on the actions of the others, if that makes sense. They were each responsible for themselves. Like when Jennifer Adriana starts swearing, and flipping people off.
Yes. And especially like as we're all working towards healing, to be like, yeah, they're just they're still working on that. Ben?
I think there's definitely a shift, but it's not because our friendship was solidified so easily, that it hasn't been an issue for, at least for me specifically, because it's just like you brought in another extra to the group, and like you just brought in more people. It's like when you got married and brought Jonathan into the group. Like it's just another person that you brought into the group. And the fun part is when it's a text conversation and realizing who's behind the text message, because you can't get subtext from a text message. You can't hear vocal inflection, and so it's the little pieces of, like, whether it's a block text or whether it's 7 individual small texts in a line, or just like the little things like that you have to, like, you filter in, and then as you're looking at the text, you're like, okay, it's probably, and you just kind of shift through that real quick mental math. But also, and I don't know if you're planning on touching into this later, like the first time you meet a new alter on camera, how well they hide that they're a new alter, or how much of a giveaway.
We'll go right into that.
Okay, so when we first met Jennifer Adriana, she was trying really hard to not be herself, to try to, like, front as Jenna. And
we were having a business call. She was trying to be professional.
Yeah, we were having a conversation, and I'm sitting there going, that's not Jenna, but I don't know who that is. But it's definitely not Jenna.
And my subconscious is going, there's something wrong, but I don't know what it is, so I'm just going to keep going. And then Ben said something, and I'm like, that's
it! and then Jennifer Adrian got a little bit like, what? But I was doing such a good job.
It's like you gave yourself away when you flipped off the camera, dear.
And it's amazing, like, when, especially knowing somebody as well as we know each other, you can see when there is the alter shift. You can see that on the face, and there's a lot of facial expressions that one holds. Like, Lil's a giggler, like you can say. Jennifer Adriana, not a giggler, very serious, and so you can see just those facial muscles that either one use or one doesn't. That you're like, okay, so this one's not anywhere near, like, this one's sleeping right now, and this one's presenting. Even if they're presenting and trying not to, they're still not using certain facial muscles because it's just not natural to them.
Oh yeah, and she was so like, dang it. Of course, that's not the language she was using, but that's exactly. But it was so helpful, and because I've had the choice with most of my friends when to tell them. But because you guys have been part of the journey every step of the way, like, you just kind of grew into this with me, from me going, I don't know what's going on, and I'm hearing this, and then going, oh, so this is what's going on, and that's kind of, I don't know how I feel about that. But because my alters knew they could trust you, when Jennifer Adriana was first out and at her most, like, man-hating, vicious, we had our call, and she was like, I can do this, I'll just pretend. But once it was, like, out, like, that it wasn't Jenna, she was like, okay, well, here, I'm going to use this opportunity, because talking to a man, like, across the screen is not threatening, to be like, okay, you male species thing that I don't like, what about this male species thing I live with? Because I know I can at least trust you, because you guys have been there through all of this, and you don't have a stake in, like, my life, so you can be unbiased. Is this person trustworthy?
Oh yeah, I remember that conversation. We were giving her advice on dealing with your husband.
Yes.
and it was so good because she also had the internal counsel. Like, you had, like, all of the other internal, the other alters speaking, and she was like, I don't know if I trust the others with what they're saying about him, because they're all invested too. But because I'm separated physically and, like, spatially, like, okay, so they say I can trust you, so we're gonna give this a test. Like, it was really good for that.
Yeah, and so your guys' relationship with me and then with all of my alters and building that trust has been extremely helpful in like healing and growth. So they're awesome. um
Glad we didn't screw things up.
no, like you definitely intuitively did things right. Like for instance, there's several things that are like no-nos when you're interacting with alters. And a lot of it's like individual person to person. But you guys just knew how to deal with it. So you didn't treat them like they were me. And you've never asked for a certain alter, which a lot of people are like, hey, they'll be like, yeah, my friends like them better. And then if we're hanging out, I feel like they don't want to hang out with me. Um,
Oh.
right, right. And you
I
guys have
have
never done.
asked for opinions from specific alters.
Well, and that's totally valid.
Like when you and I were arguing over some fashion thing, I'm like, you know what? Just go ask Anthony. And
Yes,
then you came back and were cranky at both of us because he agreed with me.
yes, yes.
But that's
And
just like passing a note to a friend, but hey, can you hand this to that person over there? I mean, you're literally just like, hey, can you drop this in their mailbox real quick and come back?
Yeah. Now, I will say, for me personally, I don't know if I would have been able to do this near as well if we hadn't been friends for so long first.
yeah,
Purely because, not because it would have freaked me out, but because I would have been literally meeting new people. And I'm not good with people. I'm really shy in real life, and I don't like meeting new people, and it makes me nervous, and I don't know what to talk about, and I just probably wouldn't have handled it near as well if we hadn't been friends for almost 20 years. So
well, I mean, the
that.
Lil will just talk, so
Yeah,
that one's
yes.
easy.
Thankfully, the conversation I had with her, she just took over. I'm like, you go, girl.
um, so another thing you guys have handled well that I know some people online will talk about friends or family not handling well are when I have a switch when we are like on our call. Um,
Yeah.
They're like, well, some people will be like, hey, snap out of it. Not helpful. Like if I'm switchy, I'll just be like, hang on, guys, I'm switchy. Talk amongst yourselves. And you're like, yeah, cool. Like it'll been awesome. So before we wrap this up, is there anything you guys want to add or any stories you want to tell?
Um, I'm honestly shocked that I've handled this as well as I have. Because I wasn't expecting it, and it just it kind of came out of nowhere. And new experiences with people aren't usually something that I handle that great. So I don't know. Thank God that you let me handle it as well as I have, because yeah, it's been fascinating, and um, it hasn't been awkward or uncomfortable, which surprises me just because I know me and, like I said, how I handle new experiences with people. It's mostly just been fascinating and just like, oh, new person. Okay, we're good. Shifting. I'm talking to someone else now. Okay. Jenna will come back later and I will finish that conversation then.
That's right.
I think it's had a very positive influence on my emotional quotient. Just being able to, and like, I've always had a little bit of the empathy line going through me, whether I was conscious of it or not. And just so being able to, like I said, identifying visually when the shift happens, or when what I was expecting was not the alter that's fronting, and being able to, like, okay, wait, no, I recognize that, instead of just blindly going through and pushing through, and like people will do, and just assuming it's Jenna, and then moving forward and just and negating the other alter that's fronting at the moment, like being able to actually recognize that, because I think there was a time for me when I would have done that just on accident without realizing it, because I wasn't aware. Like I would sense something wrong, but not that there was a shift that had taken place. And then especially like you just mentioned in the calls, where when you do have to shift in call, because somebody started the college, and I was like, no, we got business to do. Let me
Right.
being able to then me shift my thought processes while you're shifting and handing the reins over. Like, yeah, it's helped me with being able to do that, and then dealing with other people in the physical world in that same way.
That's
I think it's definitely expanded my mental horizons. It's been good for me.
Well, you guys have been like awesome. Everybody should go check out the Insubordinate Pen. It's fun, it's lighthearted, and snarky. Yes, lots of snark. That is pretty much all via the Cranky Battle Maiden. I will let you know all the fun snark lines. Like 70% are hers. The other 15 are me and Ben pissing her off and being, oh, we should write that down. Yeah.
And
So
possibly some of it is us writing things into the story just to trigger the snarky, pissy comments. So
no, you've never done that.
Because you know the little buttons. You just have to, in any way you can.
Yes, you do, don't you?
I don't know what you're talking about. I admit to nothing.
All right. Well, as the queen bee of the group, I will have to say we need to get on to our writing stuff. So I'm going to end this portion. Thank you guys so much.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you.